Hey, what's your problem? You have business problems? We have business solutions.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. Life is a fight.
Yep.
In business, every day is a fight.
All day long.
So, hey, what's your problem?
Oh, my goodness. What is the fight this week? It really is always something. We're recording on a Monday, and I've already had about 3 instances of it's always something. Yes, thank you, John David Wells, the big voice guy, for voicing the intro to the show. You know, I used to do that kind of thing for my own podcast. I was the voice of the actual podcast, and let me tell you, it's not exactly something, it's kind of weird having your own voice introduce yourself. This is the What's Your Problem podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals about that one thing. It's always something. This is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at whatsyourproblempodcast.com. Find your, pick your poison. How do you like to listen to podcasts? They're all right there. If you want to watch them, we're on YouTube, if you want to, and Facebook for that matter. And share it out. Our big, hairy, audacious goal for the year 2023 going into 2024 are 10,000 average downloads per episode. Help me out with that if you could. I am your host, Jim McCarthy, and with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com. And today, another B&I-er, fellow, I've been friends with this gentleman since, probably 2015, 2016 or so. Mr. David Crabtree. He is the proprietor of Crabtree Benefits. If you want benefits and all those fun things for your business, he is the man to talk to. And he's been doing this for quite some time. I'm intrigued to have him on because not only is he a great business person here locally, he's also a former history teacher and I guess historian. Is that right?
Yes, I was a history teacher, psychology teacher for about 12 years.
History and psychology.
Yes.
So we're going to be totally psychoanalyzing everything that's going on here. You are aware that we also kick things off with something we call the Dad Joke Challenge, right?
Did not know that.
You did not know that?
Nope.
Well, we do. And it is brought to you by Trade Bank of Nashville. We all are big fans of Ed Fox. He's in B&I with us in the Williamson County chapter. And he does the jokes because he is a dad joke aficionado. But first and foremost, his company in the chapter is Trade Bank. So if you're a business that sells things, or maybe it's a service business and things are slow, you got some products that are languishing on the shelves, give Trade Bank a holler because you can still monetize those things and move them, keep that forward momentum, and take advantage of an alternate economy, if you will, and tap into the networking potential that is within Trade Bank of Nashville. Are you ready? So the Dad Joke Challenge, David.
Okay.
You can comment, you can laugh. We don't really keep score, but we kind of do. I always crack up. And we kind of just have fun with it. 5 dad jokes.
5 dad jokes.
5 dad jokes. All right. Here we go.
Went to the Air and Space Museum last weekend. It was disappointing. There was nothing to see there.
Oh. Nothing.
No, nothing on that one. Sorry.
Nothing on that one. It's like it's air and space or something.
Yeah, exactly.
We got air and space on that joke.
What do you call a bee that can't make up its mind? A maybe.
They established themselves in May.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a tough. You're a tough one, aren't you?
I'm a tough laugh. Yeah.
Let me see if we get this volume correct. Here we go.
Did you know that England doesn't have a kidney bank, but it does have a Liverpool?
Not bad.
Not bad. Yeah.
So that's pretty good. That's typical. They typically get better as we go along.
Yes.
So.
Why do mermaids wear seashells? Because B shells are too small and D shells are too big.
But you know what? They're just right. Sorry, I had to.
That may be the best one so far.
No, that was pretty good. Here we go. Final one, I promise.
Now this one surprised me. Did you know there's no official training for a garbage collector? They just pick it up as they go.
And that was pretty good.
Yep. Sorry, not as good as The Little Mermaid, though. It just makes you think about the movie in a whole different fashion. So.
Have you seen the recent movie?
I haven't seen the recent one, no.
No, I have not yet seen it. It's streaming already. Go figure.
Yeah.
So there you go. The Dad Joke Challenge brought to you by Trade Bank. All the details are in the description. If you're interested, go check it out. Trade Bank of Nashville with Mr. Ed Fox. Such a big fan of Ed, right?
Oh yeah, I love Ed though. He is he's just pure energy.
He really is.
So yeah.
So how are you this morning? Monday morning, fresh. First thing in the morning, you're sitting here doing a podcast, which I know you're excited about.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of an odd person. Even when I was teaching, and now Mondays were always a day that I had more energy. Fridays were the day. I know a lot of people are like they're jacked for the weekend. I'm kind of like I've been through the whole week. I'm tired. I'm ready to just go home.
Well, weekend you just wanted to recharge.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which would make sense. I mean, for a teacher. My goodness, in this day and age. I've had a lot of different teachers on this podcast. Mm-hmm. Actually, one teacher and a principal from a school. And it's a challenging industry at this point. And tell me all about how you got started with it, because you and I are about the same age. So I'd imagine you kind of got into it in the 90s, right?
I did. I was, my initial major in college was psychology. Mm-hmm. And I actually worked with troubled youth for about 6 years.
Really?
Was thinking about going down into that field, and that's a whole other story. We want to keep the podcast somewhat happy and light,
uplifting.
Uplifting. Yeah. So decided I didn't want to go down that trek of continuing that. So, but I enjoyed working with the teenagers. That's what led me to the idea of going into teaching.
Yeah.
So I had to finish up the psych degree. So I got the bachelor's in psych. And I was in Memphis at the time. I'll age myself. I started at Memphis State. It's now the University of Memphis. I was there when they made the change. But anyways, that's how I got into it. And I always liked sports. Played a little bit, never very good, but I played and thought I would coach a little bit. And
what'd you play?
Played baseball, basketball, and stuff like that. So played baseball in high school. Actually, in junior college, I was a tennis player. If you're watching, you're like, this guy's a tennis player. I was a lot lighter then, but
weren't we all?
Yeah, really. Anyway, that's how I got into it, and really enjoyed to be perfectly honest, enjoyed the classroom a lot of times more than I enjoyed the athletic field, even though I had some great moments. And but that's how I got started. Worked in, like I said, 12 years, and really, it's just one of those things that I kind of. Got to a point it was time to do something different,
So you're 12 years in the educational system as a history psych teacher.
Right, teaching history and psychology. The last year that I taught, last couple of years that I taught nothing but psychology. And psychology was always a fun class. You really didn't have much trouble with
What grade was it?
High school.
Yeah, high school.
So when you're teaching psychology, it's an elective. Mm-hmm. So you got anywhere from mostly juniors and seniors, about with a spattering a few sophomores. But it's a class that when kids take it, they automatically everyone's intrigued.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks about that. It's funny because, when I was younger, my drive was to look at abnormal behavior.
Right.
As I've gotten older, I just want to understand normal, whatever normal is, behavior. But just a very fun class, helping, and it wasn't a feel-good class where you go in and talk about your feelings. No, we talk about research, how to conduct research from a social science standpoint. We talk about when you're, this is basically a psych. A lot of you that gone to college, you had your psych 101, very similar. Talking about the approaches of psychology, the research and all that type of stuff, and then getting into the brain.
The conscious, the subconscious, and the id.
Exactly.
Right?
When you start talking about psychoanalysis, exactly. Id, ego, superego, all that type of stuff.
Superego.
So very, very similar to your college course, Psych 101. Just same material, but as you get in college, get a little more in depth. But I had a great time doing it. It was a lot of fun.
See, I think that they should make psychology a common, I guess, a core course that everyone needs to take. It's practical information. Why is it an elective?
Well, it is an elective in high school. In college, obviously, you have to do it.
Yeah.
But and there's not all schools offer it, depending on their curriculum. If it's I've known friends that were teachers at magnet schools. They just didn't have enough room in the curriculum for it. But I think you can make that argument that it is helpful for self-reflection.
Yeah.
But it's also helpful for other areas in life. One of the areas I think we totally forget about is because we always want to get into the brain, we want to get into like the id, the superego, and all those types of things. But I think it's also just important, and early in the course, talking about research, understanding, because we're bombarded constantly. We hear 4 out of 5 doctors say this is the best medication for a headache or whatever. well, how many did they ask?
Yeah.
They might have asked just 5.
Right.
Literally. When you hear polls all the time, this candidate is up by this much and this one's up. I mean, it's how research is done can be very easily manipulated, and understanding that, I think as a young person, as an adult, when you're bombarded with that information, is you got to look deeper into it. You got to say, okay, well, where were you asking the questions? How are you asking the questions? Things like that. So
it's almost as if we pumped psychology from a young age. I would imagine, increase the EQ factor of people, the emotional quotient.
It could. It could, yeah.
Because we're in a time where we need to be a lot more empathetic to each other than, how it seems where everyone's at each other's throats.
It could possibly help in those areas. I think, you got to realize when you're taking a psych class, I mean, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, but I'm not able to diagnose anybody for anything.
Right.
And that's one of my pet peeves when I hear people say, "Oh, that kid's got ADD." I'm like, my first thought is, well, where did you go to school? Where did you get your doctoral degree?
Facebook University.
Exactly. So, I think what you're talking about could be very helpful, but we also have to be very careful. This is a class to help understand the beginnings and get an idea of why we act the way we act and why other people act the way. But you're never going to fully know that person, so.
Well, all my, I want to say 10th through senior year classes that I took, psychology and the trade classes that I was in, electronics and things like that, as well as accounting. Also did another class with Mr. Trudell. He taught us about the stock market. Those were absolutely fascinating for me. The rest of it I could just do without. Math to a certain extent. If you're really a math person, there's never enough math you can learn. But for the common person like myself, I just need to know fractions, decimals, maybe a little bit of algebra, things of that nature. But trigonometry, algebra 2, geometry, I just not applicable to my life. Psychology, I loved it. Accounting 101. Can you imagine me being a CPA? This is how misguided.
I took an accounting class myself in high school.
I loved it, but it was practical. I could relate to it.
Yeah.
But you can't ever imagine me as a CPA. That's what I thought I wanted to be.
Yeah. But the stuff you learn in there, you don't have to go all the way to be a CPA.
Right.
From running a business, running
helps you, analyze income, balance, statements, balance sheets, all that stuff.
Yeah. One of the last classes I ever taught, I did go get some training. I taught a personal finance class as well. And I think that was amazing. I mean, we have economics, but that's only for a half semester. It's really talking about, like from a macro standpoint, personal, understanding how to buy a home, understanding those types of things, understanding taxes, stuff like that. So
they don't spend enough time on that stuff.
No, they don't.
No. And they don't tell you exactly, buying a home, what you're really buying.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because you're not really, you don't own the house. Ever. Were you aware of that?
Oh, because you're referring to property taxes.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
That's a great point. And I remember, I think I know who you're referring to in that. But that makes a good point. I mean, you have your house totally paid off, but you still got to pay the property taxes.
That's
and
right.
if you don't, they'll come run you out.
Take your house away.
Take it away.
That's right. You never truly own your house. You own the equity if you're that lucky.
Yeah.
How did we get here? That brings up the history aspect of it. How did we get here? Because, those who don't learn history, what's the old saying, are doomed to repeat it.
Doomed to repeat it, exactly.
But I don't know. I still think that even those who learn are still doomed to repeat it.
Well, I think also another reason you learn history, and when you were talking there a few minutes ago about different things that were important for you and what helped you in high school, is I don't think we do enough social studies training, period. No. I mean, the curriculum, and I haven't, and let me say this, I haven't been in the classroom in 11 years, so maybe things have maybe changed a little bit. But we just don't do enough studies on the Constitution. We just don't do enough studies on the founding of our nation, why we were founded. I think that's very important. You talk about the history of things and how we got here. So it's I think those are vital things that we just don't spend enough time on. I mean, when you go out and you see once again, here's your research stuff, but I'm not a big man on the street person because you don't know how many people they've talked to and who they're putting into the video. But when you go out on the street and you ask young people or go across to a high school and say, hey, give me one of the first, give me a Bill of Rights. one of the Bill of Rights, and they're like, Bill of what? They don't know.
Wow.
So, and that's really a sad thing. Now, not all of it like that, obviously. Maybe you catch them on a moment once you explain it that, oh yeah, they can name off a few. But I think that's vital that we understand our basic rights as Americans and as human beings.
Well, again, that's why I think we repeat history, because the context of it is what's important. I had an American history teacher in college. My second go around, the one that I paid for, so therefore I took it more seriously, but that's a whole nother conversation. This guy went about it like a really good preacher. You know, you get a good church sermon and the preacher can put everything in context. You understood why those people of that particular age were thinking the way they were thinking, what they were going through, why they wrote the things they wrote, what was going on in their lives. This guy went about it like that. He was just amazing. And his enthusiasm and passion for American history was so, it just stuck to you, you know, and it left you I loved his class. It was almost like being entertained for an hour. Yeah. Actually, it was a couple of hours. It was only a one.
And history should be entertaining.
It should be. It depends on who the orator is, who's giving the lesson, you know, and if they're loving what they do, that can really come across. That passion is contagious, as the word I was looking for. This guy he made you think about American history. You know, it's like watching The Patriot with Mel Gibson, you know. He had, I guess, his character fought in the French and Indian War, which predated the Revolutionary.
Right.
Okay. And
1760, 17,
right.
Yeah.
So they were, you know, still fresh off of that. He had done some pretty gnarly things during that time before he had a family, before he had kids. So he was obviously, no, I don't want any fights. But until they brought the fight to his porch and, you know, set his house on fire, killed one of his kids, he was like, you know, that puts it in perspective. You know, why did all these guys, you know, come together and sign their own death warrant, you know, with the Declaration of Independence? Yeah, people don't understand. Oh, it's not like they just hung around and said, hey, let's just do this. No, they understood that we're signing a death warrant.
Right.
We are committing treason against our mother country. We don't want to be a part. We're breaking up with you. We know there's only, you know, maybe 100 of us that we know of that think the same way. But yeah, we'll take you on. That's bold, man.
One of my favorite statements is from Benjamin Franklin after they had signed the Declaration of Independence. I think you may have heard this. And he said, we must now all hang together. Otherwise, we'll all hang together.
Yeah.
Because as in the what was the movie National Treasure, Nicolas Cage, as he offered a toast to treason, because they were committing treason against the British Crown. But they did have their reasons, and they were basing that on John Locke, and the idea that once you are being oppressed, you have a right to rise up and break those chains, break those connections, if you wish. And that's what they were basing it on. All those were, but once again, here are very well-educated people who had the substance to base why they're doing what they're doing. And I think that's one of the reasons also we learn history is not just so we don't repeat it, but to have a basis on why we make the decisions we make today, how we have been influenced in the past, and sometimes look at it and say, hey, that was a mistake. Let's don't repeat it. Or this situation may not be exactly like it, but you can take inferences. And you know, there's a lot of people that are going into the ballot box nowadays. They have no idea why they're voting the way they're voting. They're voting that way because this is the way my father voted or my mama voted and my grandparents voted, so I'm both the same way. Instead of taking a more firm standing on this is what I believe, instead of voting for a letter, and I don't care which letter you're voting for, vote for a basis, a reason. Yeah. You know, because if those parties changed, would you change? Yeah. And sometimes people won't because they're still voting for that letter instead of voting for an actual concept and idea. Exactly. And that's kind of like where we are as a country. You know, you understanding American history from where we came from, how far away we've gotten from that core concept. You said before that a lot of kids don't know, you know, the Bill of Rights, the you know, all the different amendments made to the Constitution and why they put them in there. There are reasons. Exactly. You know, and it's understanding the context of the time at the time were the reasons, because you guys just have no idea what it was like to be
oppressed and told that your taxes were going up for just, the wind's blowing the right way,
Yeah.
And just when does a generation get to the point where it's had enough?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I know when I was studying history in college and preparing to be a teacher, one of the things we talked about, or that was taught from my professors, was the idea of what you were talking about, presentism.
Yeah.
And that is understanding that the people in that era had a different view in life, different from us, similar in some ways, but we cannot take our views today and what we know today and necessarily apply that to that 100 years ago, 200 years ago, or whatever. I think we have to look at it from that standpoint, and at least to give some grace. I think we don't want to give grace anymore, not only to a lack of grace to our neighbor who has put a fence up right on the boundary and didn't ask us, but not giving that grace to someone 50 years ago, 100 years ago who just didn't know any better. I mean, good people, they just didn't know any better. And hopefully if they would have had the opportunity to learn what we've learned, they would have hopefully moved this way as well. So I think we need to be very careful and not be so judgmental on those of the past.
Well, that's one thing I always bring up is if we're judgmental on the education or intelligence of those who came up with the Constitution, the Declaration. Okay, you try reading it and try and understand it in first pass.
Yeah.
Read the Federalists Papers, and you tell me if you can understand them on first pass. And then tell me that we really are more intelligent than the people, because we tend to look at ourselves as, supreme because of our time in history.
Right.
I completely and vehemently disagree. I think those guys we're standing on the shoulders of giants, truly.
Right.
And there's a reason why we here we are remembering them 200 plus years, almost 300 years later. They did something amazing, that was just, the odds of them winning were just infinitesimal.
Yes.
And when people when they start applying that to what they were really doing, it was a 4-year grind, 1771 to 76 to 81, right? Or 5 years?
Yeah, 81, 83, I think it was 1783 is when the peace treaty was finally signed. So one of the longer American conflicts. Exactly.
Right.
Only one longer being the Vietnam War or the Vietnam conflict, however you want to describe that.
Right.
So,
And that's a whole different story in and of itself.
Definitely.
But if you read books like Generations, The Fourth Turning, even the book I talk about all the time, Pendulum, it really does surmise why we go through these cycles. It surmises it very well.
Right.
Generations talks about 4 elements, 20-year elements of generations that, total 80 years. And they're like, they have positive and negative forces, much like, the moon has the effect on the tides. Everything has a systolic and diastolic flow, right? And in the book Generations, it talks about how the reason why we go through a calamity every 80 years. Pendulum actually surmises that we're actually swinging on a cultural pendulum going from what we call a we zenith to a me. And me was the zenith 40 years ago, back in 1983. And right now we're going through the we zenith of we're basically looking like 1943 all over again. So
interesting.
It is very interesting. For a history buff, I would assume it's a good book for you to read, I think.
I need to try that sometime. Yeah.
But it's amazing how business owners and influencers and entrepreneurs, one of whom wrote a book called The Hard Way, and he wanted to put all the lessons he learned. He says, well, I just don't want anybody to learn the hard way like I had to. And I go, well, some people just still are, man.
Well, it's very nice. It kind of goes by how many of us listen to our parents. Sometimes we actually had a conversation the other day with somebody. There's some things you just have to learn on your own.
Yeah.
And we try to protect our kids from those things, but sometimes, you got to have that heart broke that first time, and you learn how to deal with it. You learn how to get past it, and you learn how maybe I need to, date someone who's a little bit nicer to me, and not just because they're cute or whatever.
I put it like this, and I've said this so many times on the show before. 80 years ago, we're separated by a generation, the boomers, essentially, that didn't know what it was like to live through World War II. They were too young. They were babies, right?
Right.
My parents, they were babies when it all happened. My grandparents, on the other hand, your grandparents as well, lived through that whole time not knowing whether we were going to be speaking German or Japanese.
Yeah.
They didn't know how it was going to end. We have that lens now to look back on history and go, oh, okay, we know how it played out. But man, if Hitler got a hold of nuclear weapons or atomic weapons, that would have shifted the whole thing, man.
Oh, yeah.
Him detonating that over the beaches of Normandy, it would have changed the whole thing.
Yeah. And don't forget also, even before that, the Great Depression.
Yeah.
I mean, when my grandfather passed away, he was in his 90s.
Yeah.
They found $6,000 in the wall next to his bed.
Wow.
Just happened to find it. Still didn't have trust for banks. And this was in the 1990s when he passed away. So, but no, I think you're exactly right. I mean, it was what they refer to the greatest generation.
Yeah.
I think they just did not know how to quit. You never stopped. You kept going forward. But you're exactly right. Even in the face of amazing adversity and not knowing how it was going to end, still continuing forward. And, that's something that we could all learn from.
I think it's something we all need.
It is.
We're very overdue for a major calamity.
Oh.
What do you think about that?
Well,
no, not that we ever want to see it.
Yeah, not that we ever want to see it, but very true. I mean, I think the things that we're focused on today are things that generation would just shake their head and be like, you're not focusing on the major issue.
We've got bigger issues than that.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many things that, supply chain. I mean, from coming out of COVID, supply chain still is not back where it should be.
Yeah. And
then you have some places, and I'm not want to get into that, but the point of the matter is that you can't just shut a supply chain down and then say, we're going to start up again. So, I say that could be your great calamity that you're talking about. And I mean, how many of us know how to go out and, I mean, it's not to sound comical, but how many of us know how to farm?
Right.
How many of us do,
Oh, we're up a creek.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. A country boy will survive. That's for sure.
That's very true.
So getting out of the being in school, what kind of made you want to get out of it?
Well, I was kind of asked to leave. I didn't have tenure at a particular school, and it's one thing about education. If you don't have tenure, they can let you go. But of course, as most people out here understand, they can let you go whenever they want to and get laid off or whatever. And essentially, that's what happened to me. And we were close to family, my wife and I. We've been married 20 years now. So at that time, we were, 6-7 years in. I'm sorry, shorter than that, 3 or 4, because my youngest son was only like 6 months old. And I said, well, I'll just, I'll be able to find another job because teaching is pretty open. A lot of places around here to go. And subbed for a year. And after subbing for a year, didn't find a position. And I said, hey, I've got to...
Got to find something to do.
I got to find something to do. I got a master's degree. I'm a smart guy, I thought. And sent out resumes. And the only one that reached back were insurance carriers. And so all of a sudden I found myself looking at that. And I said, hey, I'll give it a shot. Why not? And here I am. So...
And that's a long grind for you.
It is, because when you go into the insurance field, I was very fortunate. The first couple of years, because I actually was in the insurance field for a couple of years, and then I went back into teaching. That's when my wife and I had our second son, and it was during those first 2 years, I met a friend of mine, a gentleman who has become an amazing friend, a mentor to me, man of amazing Christian faith. When I was working at my last school, that was Franklin High School, he called me one day and said, why don't you come be an account manager for me? So he was going to give me a salary and said, hey, if you write business, you can keep a small percentage of that. So in 2012, I went and did that. June of 2012, I'll never forget, I left teaching for good, went to work for him, and really haven't looked back since, because that's when I learned how to, before you can really write groups, you need to know how to take care of them.
Right.
So I learned how to take care of them, how to put it together. And then, over that course of the next couple of years, it was an incredible education in the field.
Yeah.
And so eventually began to write more business. And over the course of time, my commissions grew, my salary decreased. And by 2018, something like that, really I'd gotten to a point where I was living off my commissions. I wasn't getting a salary anymore. So it didn't make any sense to keep working for someone else when what I'm bringing in is what I've gone out and found. Yeah. So fortunately for me, he was a really good guy, because a lot of people in that situation, that business would belong to the agency. but he allowed me to take some of that with me. We share certain groups. We still work together now as partners, but I would not be here if it wasn't for him. So really just an amazing opportunity for me. And in January 2020, launched Crabtree Benefits. So
I was going to say, I thought that was in 2018, but it was 2020.
It was 2020, yeah. Huh. Yeah. The thought kind of started coming around in 2018, but I kind of tried to ignore it. And it just kept popping in my mind. I've referred to myself sometimes as an accidental entrepreneur.
Right.
Because I was perfectly happy doing what I was doing, but it got to a point where it was just going to be better for me to launch and go out on my own.
Well, in 2012, you were in your mid-30s?
Oh, no. I was mid-late 30s. Yeah, you're right.
Mid-late 30s. Because you and I are about the same age. You were born in 75, 76?
No, I was born in 69.
Were you?
November of 69. Barely a 60s child.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you and I were the same age, but you're older than I am.
Yeah, a little older.
So
I know I look younger, so thank you.
That's true. You do. It's easy to do when you're in a room with me. The looking at making that shift in 2012 though is very interesting because you were in your early 40s, late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
Well, so you'd be early 40s.
Early 40s,
right.
yeah.
So because you would have been 40.
Yeah, when I launched Crabtree Benefits, I was 50. So I didn't become an entrepreneur until I was 50. So a little bit of a late bloomer.
You had a shift into something different out of teaching around your 40-year mark.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I have a whole theory about that as well. That in 20-year segments, we always go through different seasons, and around 40, if we're lucky enough, we go through a nice shift.
Yeah.
That happened to me.
Okay.
So around 40,
But did your shift, did you want to make that shift, or was it kind of forced upon you?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
I was kind of done with radio. Radio, I could see, was not really going anywhere. It started, declining. I had to make some big boy money. So one of the clients from radio invited me to partake in the car business for a season. Hey, if you come here, you sell 20 a month, you'll make, over $100,000 a year. Okay. It was a tough grind.
Yeah.
I would imagine that getting into sales and having a psychology background certainly helps.
It does a little bit. I mean, I still go back and look at that. I mean, it's it's understanding more of the social psychology in this standpoint, just being able to make people feel relaxed, feel comfortable. I go at it from really, when I'm talking to a new prospect, really using my teaching background, because I want to teach why I'm presenting what I'm doing, what proposal why am I presenting this, and then just being more of a consultant is really kind of my I think more of my driving force there.
So more of a consultative approach to sales, not so transactional.
Exactly.
And that's it's not a quick start situation. Insurance in general is not a quick. You're not going to one call close people.
No.
They have to get to know you. They have to get to it's a relationship. And eventually, after 5 or 6 years, which as it timed out, so 2012 to 2018 was 6 years, you went off on your own, kind of parlayed into Crabtree Benefits as we know it now. And then that became just your main thing. But I mean, it was a 5 to 7, 8 year grind for you to get into that.
Yeah, just get that point. Because I mean, you're talking about, like I said, at least I had a salary as an account manager.
Yeah.
Taking care of other clients, taking care of, making sure that when they have a claims issue, a billing issue, whatever, new hires with onboarding, terminations, things like that.
Learning the infrastructure of the business.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Learning that. And I know there's probably some that wouldn't agree with that. For me, it was a lot better. I know some people are much, much better salesmen than I am, and they can go out there and they can sell a group in a much quicker time, and they move on to the next. They kind of pass it to someone else. And that's fine.
So that's more transactional based
for them, yeah.
Right.
And I'm not degrading that. That's fine, because that's what they do, and they've got a great team behind them that then takes care of that group. Then they go to the next one. I need to probably be a little bit more like that if I really want to grow huge. But I have grown. I grow very steadily, but I love that aspect. I love being able to walk into one of my groups, and as I'm walking in, before I even get to the business owner or the HR person or the office manager, whomever, the person sitting at the front desk says, "Oh, hey, Dave, it's good to see you."
Yeah,
I know who they are. I talk to them about their children, talk to them about what's going on, and to me, that's just it's just a lot of fun. It's just really heartwarming.
It's making them into an advocate, and then even as they get made fun of here for this terminology, I call it flaming advocates. And I've heard that in marketing before, where it's pyro marketing is what they call it. That's what the book is called. And it's all about, like, if you light a match, and it's by itself, only one match will light.
Right.
So if you put it in a group of matches, what happens? That person, hopefully their enthusiasm, their passion for what they do
spreads.
Your flaming advocate creates more flaming advocates, right? So, I mean, that's kind of the name of the game for what you're doing, because I see so many sales trainers out there in this day and age that are just preaching to the younger choir. I call them bro frat boy sales trainers. I'm sure you've come across them in your business. Sometimes it just, you and I, at the time that we've made our massive shifts and paradigm shifts in our lives and our careers, we've been around the block a few times,
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I would imagine, even though you had a great mentor getting into it, did you ever have anybody who was kind of contrary to your belief system, try to force different concepts onto you in terms that kind of stuff, sales training?
I don't know if I really had anybody to force it on me. I mean, I just know people who've come across it.
Been exposed to it?
Yeah, I've been exposed to it. More of a, I would say, well, don't you want to grow your business faster?
Right.
Or don't you want to add this, and to be perfectly honest, they may be right from that standpoint. It just isn't right for me. I think at the end of the day, you have to be true to yourself.
Yeah.
And when you're true to yourself, and you're true to who you are, people feel that. You go back to the psychology stuff. There's something we've learned. We talk. We really do believe now that there truly is a subconscious that we're not truly fully aware of.
Right.
And I've told my kids this. If you don't feel comfortable around someone, but you're not sure why, you can't quite put your finger on it, but you just don't feel comfortable around them, and you don't want to be around them. So you need to listen to that, because that's part of your brain telling you something. And I think it's very true in sales as well. You got to be true to yourself. You got to do what works for you. I can't go in there and be this high energy. I'm just not a high energy. I'm a very.
You're high energy in your own way.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I have a passion.
Yeah.
When I used to coach, I used to tell my kids, I said, don't be confused. I'm trying to be quiet and trying to be reserved. I mean, I do have a fire burning inside me, and that would show. And I broke my fungo bat, when we weren't getting relays right in baseball. Broke my fungo one time. So, but you just got to be true to yourself. Be who you are. Don't try to be somebody you're not, because people recognize that.
Their BS meters are so finely attuned.
Exactly.
Especially if you try and put on those airs when you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me how to, you too could make over $1 million in just a month, just like I did. Just buy my course.
Yeah.
The white papers. That's, for me, it was kind of the same way, where I was exposed to a lot of different sales trainers in the car business. A lot of the managers, everyone had their way of doing things. They thought it was the right way. I had a general manager that, completely opposed any of what the desk guys would try and preach, that, you do it this way. He's like, come on, there's 1,001 ways to skin a cat. Yeah. You just got to find, for me, it was learning the fundamentals and then finding my own voice within that construct of fundamentals.
Right.
Same thing with voiceover. A lot of people get into voiceover because they're told they have a good voice. And I say, well, you know what? Gilbert Gottfried did not have a good voice, but he made it work because he found what worked for him and what other people seemed to like.
Right.
Same thing with selling. When I got into it, I learned the fundamentals. I had to learn to be a little bit more assertive and ask for the close, because it can be a relationship business, but with your back up against the wall like mine was, I had to make a paycheck and you had to move inventory because you wouldn't be around the next couple of months if you didn't sell. So you had to do something. You had to be at least learn that assertiveness. And the fundamentals taught me, okay, I know how to get there, the road to the goal line, but I can also do it in my own way once I understand the fundamentals. And that's when I was really the most successful, And it kind of, you're right. It's just amazing how you just find the voice. Right?
Yeah, you find your own voice and whatever's right for them. It's funny you asked about, asking, being a little more assertive. I'm in the same boat as you are, because I remember doing these presentations and thinking they're really good, but I wouldn't get the sale, and then I would think, like, well, I'm doing something wrong, so I got to change something around. And then finally, I was reading. I think reading and looking at. I don't think what we're saying here doesn't mean you don't look at different perspectives. You do. You may read someone's book and they're talking about this and that, and you may only take one or two things out of it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I did learn to ask for the sale, to close it out.
Yeah.
So what I do, but I don't come out that bluntly.
Yeah. So you want it or what?
Well, yeah. Once I finish, I just look at them and I'm going, and I can tell their wheels are spinning, and I'm not sure which direction. All I go is I just say, okay, so do we want to? How's the next Tuesday? We do the enrollment Tuesday at 9 a.m. Would that work for you? And you always hate it.
That's a trial close question.
It is.
Yes.
And you always hate it when the person says no. And then you're kind of like, your heart's sinking. They go, no, I think Thursday at 10 will be better. And I'm like, that'll work for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's crazy. And it's, mine was, okay, we're going to pull it to this. I would be coming back from a test drive. And I would get so bold, and I would find a way to say it that was me, and would get them to laugh.
Yeah.
Where do you want me to park it? Just park it right over here. This is the I'll take it home today spot. And they would exactly do that.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, okay, so does this work for you? Is it, if we can get the numbers agreeable, is this something you can see in their driveway in a couple of hours? And they would go, yeah, all right, follow me. Let's go get some numbers together.
Yeah.
And it was just very comfortable for them. Just make it comfortable. Don't try and force them. If they still had to think about it, to say, I completely understand. It's a big purchase.
I can tell you a story. I know you'll probably appreciate this. True story. In my 20s, living in Memphis, was thinking about getting a new car, and I drove to, I can't remember what kind of car. It was obviously not a Mercedes at that time, but drove into a parking lot, and literally 5 to 6 car salesmen came out. And before I could even get out of the car, and I had my girlfriend with me, we're just kind of, and they came out and they're like, "Oh yeah, come on, get out, guys, come on." And I just hit the gas and took off.
Yep.
It was scary. I mean, so having someone like you would have been great.
Yeah.
Because you'd have sold me anything.
But I mean, a lot of those. How old were those kids though? When you were at that time? Were they younger, in 20s or so?
A couple of them were younger, a couple of them were older, but none of them were I would say probably 40 and below.
There are some that just never grow up.
Yeah.
And then I was at Honda for about 7 months, and we would have, some of the salespeople that would hang out on a bench, and I had a great time at that dealership. I have nothing bad to say about the team I worked with. There was, you would get some of the guys that's how they were built, man. They would just, it was just hard selling, hard closing. And then I got to Mercedes, and it was much more. As hard as I thought it was going to be, going to a Highline dealership and all these different roadblocks and hurdles that I had built up for myself in my mind, that I didn't think I could do it. I wasn't cut from that cloth. Boy, was I wrong. It was a major learning experience just about myself, that not only can you do this, you're going to be great at it. And I really did enjoy it because it was all relationship based. These people you're not going to, hard close these people. They know exactly what they want. They could sign a check for it, in 15 minutes and pay for the whole thing. You're not telling them anything, I mean, I had a couple of customers that were getting into the brand, but for the most part, they knew exactly what they wanted,
right?
And they just wanted to figure out the details.
Right.
It was almost like order taking in a way, but I would imagine insurance is kind of the same way.
It is. It is. I mean, it's
commodity, that kind of a thing.
Commodity. Finding out, I know some people in sales like to use the term pain points.
Yeah.
I don't like that point or that word, a phrase. I prefer needs. I'm very needs based. For me, it's a two-pronged approach when you look at the benefit world, because part of it is, the first part is you're talking to the business owner. And the business owner may be really involved because they're also going to be on this plan as well. So that impacts them. But the goal with the owner is you want to have something that's going to be viable for their employees. And let me say this up front. I have about 70 clients now. And I cannot think of one of my clients, one of my owners, who is not concerned about their employees. They're not wanting just something to throw out there. They're wanting something that's good, that's a solid plan. Yeah, it's going to help them recruit new people. It's going to help them to retain who they have, but they want something solid. And that's the key, finding that need, finding what they need as a business owner. And then you shift gears. When I start talking to the employees, it's about their needs, what they need. I mean, and there's times I've told people simply because of the situation, maybe situation they're in, maybe this isn't the best plan for you. Maybe you're on a spouse plan.
Right.
You like it. You're going through a current, I have clients where they're going through health situations, and I'm like, this renewal is a little bit high, but you're in the middle of this. Why don't we wait? Let's just wait. Let's get through this, and then once you're through it and you're healthy, we'll re-examine it. So
But that's integrity right there. Because not only if it doesn't make sense for somebody, and it's in your best interest to sell them the policy, you could find your way around that. But because you have integrity and say, no, this isn't the best thing for you either. It's much more than what you're paying now, or you get a much better deal going this direction. They're going to remember you for that, and they're going to be become flaming advocates for David Crabtree, I would think, over time, when they realize that, this guy really does have my best interests at heart. So I'm going to find ways to refer him business. I would imagine that's happened.
It has. I do have clients of mine without me even asking. It's a great area for in the sales. We know to ask our current clients, our current customers.
Who else do I need to be helping?
Who else do I need to be helping? Exactly. But I've had them call me out of the blue and say, hey, I have a friend who owns a business. I told him I need to talk to you. So to me, that is referrals. What is it they say? Referrals is one of the great. I can't remember the phraseology for that, but basically, referral is just a tremendous compliment to begin with. Yeah. But for someone like this who you're currently working with to bring you something, I think it's even heightened. I want to go back to something though, because when you're talking a while ago, when I first got into sales, I was told, go read Zig Ziglar, and going back to kind of the idea of what people are and how some. Because let's be honest, when you do when I get that new client, when you get that new sale, that new whatever, and you sold that Mercedes, it's kind of a kick in the pants. It's exciting. Yeah. And one of the first things I read from Zig Ziglar was the first thing he said in one of his books, talking about the integrity thing. He said, if you can get out of sales, get out of it. Notice what I just wrote. If you can get out of it, because it really can be intoxicating. But I think it's important for us in talking about integrity and about what's right and wrong. And that is remembering we're dealing with a human being over here. Yeah. We're dealing with a person. They're not just a prospect. So I think it's very important to remember, it's going to be exciting to get that sale. This could be really good for me on my bottom line. But like you said, it's also doing what is right and what is proper at the time when dealing with that person. Is
it going to be the right thing in a year from now kind of thing? Yeah. Or, 5 years from now for them?
Right.
Are they going to remember you slamming them into something that they didn't really need? Because they're going to remember it.
Oh, yeah. They very much so will. Yeah.
And I see a lot of just, one of the sales trainers that's gotten a lot of prominence as of late, it's complete frat boy type of approach. And I always tell people I would love to just have 15 minutes and say, and how's that going to work out for everybody? Treating your own employees, treating your prospects the way you're treating them, and trying to get them in, and it's like a machismo, masculine type of, almost, I guess you could say toxic masculinity of, well, if you're not closing, you're weak. It's like, no, it doesn't mean it's just not the time.
Right.
It's how you run with that prospect over time. And say, now may not be the time. I completely understand that. Of course, asking the right questions and peeling back the onion is something that I've always done. If it wasn't the right time for a customer, I would say, I completely understand. It's a really big purchase. You're making the second largest purchase you're ever going to make. I get it. I understand where you're coming from. But let me ask you this. What's the one thing holding you back?
Right.
Because it's always one thing. It always comes down to the person, the product, or the price. And, it would just be, well, is the price right? Yeah, the price is right. Is it the car? Is it not the right car? Do we have to go down? Do we have to move up? Is it not the right color? It's not really the car. Okay, well, there's only one thing left. Is it me? It really does. No. Okay, well, you just and even then they may not buy. But I would use all the different kind of lines that I was comfortable saying to them, I'm going to keep on asking guys. I understand it might seem like I'm being a nudge, but typically after the fourth or fifth no, I get a yes. So, just bear with me.
Right.
And they would either laugh or something like that. But even typically, they would just come back because I would just kind of treat them like how I would want to be treated.
Right.
If I got to think about it, why I got to think about it. Allow me to just take a day and think about it. Yeah. I get it. Completely understand.
Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do for certain salespeople, and that is shut up. Just to shut up and allow people to think about it for a minute. Give them a few minutes. Let it gel in their mind so that they can make the proper decision that they need.
Yeah, that's typically when I presented numbers, I would zip it. Yeah, slide the paper across the desk, and I would literally at my desk to start playing on Facebook. And I would look over at them, look at the paper, look at them, go, and just kind of nod my head and back to the screen and just check up on people's updates. And eventually they would speak up, and I would answer their questions. I mean, a lot of that was just overcoming the objections, but it wasn't like a masculinity challenge for me.
No.
I knew what I had to ask. I knew how to get to the end zone.
Right.
But sometimes you just knew that they had to take their time.
Yeah.
You know.
I've had clients tell me it wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
And notice I said clients because I said I understand. I mean, it is from a business, like you're saying, someone's making the second largest purchase in their life.
Yeah.
For a business owner, it's not an easy process to put in a benefit package, to put in particularly a group medical, because you're going to be contributing.
Yeah.
And that is a X amount of dollars per employee per month. Yeah, it's a tax deduction, which is awesome. But you got to get to the point where you can file your taxes. You can't put yourself under beforehand. So I've had clients that would say, you know what, we just can't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I understand that.
Yeah.
And then I would go a different direction. Maybe we did dental and vision or something just to add something. Or even maybe not. But the point of the matter is, because, like you're talking about, we treated these folks with integrity and understood their situation, 6 months down the line, a year down the line, 2 years sometimes, getting that call and saying, hey, we can do it now.
Yeah.
I can do what I want to do.
And I remember you.
Exactly.
And how you treated me.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened to me with one client at Honda who he and his wife just started working, or his wife started working for Dave Ramsey. And he was, they had to get out of the debt. They couldn't have a car note. So they had this 2013 CRV, maybe it was a 2012. They were about $6,000 upside down in it. Mm-hmm. And they had about $12,000 in cash to buy something. So they were spending $12,000 to buy a $6,000 car. Mm. And I was going, we got to it was a split deal to begin with. So I wasn't really making all that much money on it. They found a car at another one of our stores that was in Fort Myers. It was a value-based car. When we bring something in like that, typically if it's something that's above $15,000, if it doesn't match the description when it gets here, it's got all sorts of problems, we're not going to hold you to buying it. But I told them, because of the value nature of this car, that it's a $49.95 car.
Right.
Once you sign the papers, guys, it's yours. Mm-hmm. So that means if it gets here and it doesn't start, or there are a myriad of things that are wrong. It was a 2001 Honda Accord with 167,000 miles on it.
Wow.
I remember it like it was yesterday. I literally looked at this guy and said, I'm going to take my salesman hat off and put my human being hat on so I can sleep tonight. And I said, this is an abysmally bad idea.
Yeah.
I understand what you're getting into with the Lampo group at the time when it was called that. I said, you've got money saved up. I understand that the CRV is not ideal. You got a couple of years left on that. I said, but the devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Right.
That CRV you're going to have for 15 years from now, easily. When you go ahead and put all your money, you're spending $11,000 for a $5,000 car. That's a huge mistake. You got 11 grand. Pay your car payment out of the, your CRV payment out of the 11 grand.
Yeah.
No, we can't do that. Okay. I'll put my salesman hat back on, sign right here. I'll call you when it comes in. And it's clear as day, man.
Yeah.
I remember it like it was yesterday. They still went for. Thankfully, the car showed up. It started up. It was fine. Guys, come get it. Yeah. I said, but at least I could sleep.
Exactly. You want to be able to look yourself in the mirror and know that you did the right thing.
Exactly. So with that being said, we got to see if there's anything going on with you.
What's your problem?
David, what kind of issues are you dealing with these days? Anything in particular come to mind? What is your problem?
From an issue standpoint, I mean, I don't know. Always looking for, potentially someone to connect with, new people to be able to either prospect with or just be able to refer to. I did have the problem of had an employee last year. Mm-hmm. An employee was moving up, and then unfortunately wasn't able to keep that employee because they found a better situation,
right.
Small business. So taking care of that issue though by using a virtual assistant through another company. So that's been nice. But right now, just one of the great things about insurance, and actually it's interesting because I have a neighbor whose daughter is looking to get into the field. Just took a job. I'm in the benefit side. This is going to be on the PNC side. And I told her, I said, insurance is, they tell you about all the money you can make, but you got to work hard.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have that overnight. You're not going to have that in 6 months. It's going to take you probably a few years. You got to learn the business, learn how to do it.
Did anybody tell you that going into it?
Not really.
Well, you took it out of it because you needed a job.
Yeah, I needed a job. I wanted, and I was. It was something exciting to me because it was so different from what I'd done as teaching.
Right.
I mean, this idea of, when you're a teacher, someone else gives you your schedule. They're telling you when you're having lunch. You're going to be here at 9 o'clock. You're going to be here at 2, whatever. And all of a sudden, I'm like, "Ooh, I got all this freedom now," but freedom can be a problem.
Yeah.
Because.
Your time is money.
Exactly. And if you don't use your time wisely, you're wasting your money, you know? So from that standpoint, it was very intoxicating, to be honest. I can, instead of having lunch out of the cafeteria, I'm having lunch wherever I want to have lunch. So I told her about that. I said, there's some great perks now that I'm the position I'm in now. I can take, my youngest son was running cross country. I was able to take him to those meets, or at least be there to watch him run.
Right. Right.
So those are great times, being able to help my older son get to different appointments, help with college and things like that. So the flexibility is absolutely amazing. But like I said, you gotta be able to work at it. So, but from a problem standpoint, God has blessed me in an amazing way.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm a pretty upbeat guy. I don't usually think about problems and issues. I think more about solutions. So if I've got an issue, I just kind of take care of it and just keep rolling on.
Well, like, for example, this morning I had to come in. I've got a new 32 terabyte RAID drive that I came in on Saturday figuring, I'll just get it all configured and start transferring files over. No. It's got to wait till Monday because I got to call the company and they're not, It's just those little things. It's always some little nitpicky things.
Oh, yeah.
But those things aren't too big. In the grand scheme of things in my life, it's not that big, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But if somebody told you back then when you were getting into it, David, you're probably not going to see any sort of, fruit from your labor for about 5, 6, 7 years. Would you still have done it?
Oh, man, I've never been asked that. That's a great question. Wow. I know what my wife's answer would have been.
Hell no.
Yeah, exactly. Simply, nope, you're not going to do that. I'll be honest with you. There was a period, it did put a strain on our marriage the first few years because I wasn't making a lot. I actually had a part-time job, worked at Publix, worked in the deli for a couple of years. And that wasn't good because I had to be there at night because I had to do the insurance in the day. And, and it's really amazing. We have, my wife and I, we both have a temper, but then we both calmed down and she said something really amazing to me. She said, I'm not mad at you. I'm frustrated for you because I see how hard you're working and it's just not working out. And I'm like, but it can, and it will. I just had this, someone say a faith in myself. I don't know. That might be a nice phrase for it. I think it was more, I like to use the word perseverance. That's my superpower, my perseverance. My mom would have called it, well, you're just hard-headed and stubborn is what it is.
Right.
And I just wasn't going to quit. I just was going to keep driving and make it happen. But I like to think that, based on your question there, to get back to it, I think I may would have, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 or 6 years, but I could be in the position I am now, and my family could be, secure. Yeah, I think I would say yeah. But, it's a
tough prospect.
It is.
But again, you also were at the time of life where you knew 5 or 6 or 7 years would go by in almost a blink of an eye. We have that kind of perspective as we get older. I mean, life is really like a roll of toilet paper. It goes the faster it goes, the more you get to the end.
Right.
And that's I kind of stepped out into entrepreneurship full time in 2016. Here I am 7 years later. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh yeah,
but
definitely.
it was one of those things that it took some time. There were mistakes and. You got into some muddy situations, but, you just kind of hope for the best and do the best you can. Nothing's guaranteed with it. Other than you can count on how hard you'll work and how hard you'll get, how much you'll get in front of people.
My oldest son's an engineer, or my oldest son's a senior thinking about engineering or law. He's really kind of torn. And that math thing that you were talking about earlier, it's driving him crazy. But one thing I want him to understand is that, maybe you won't need to learn the business, whatever it is you do, but I want him to have it in the back of his mind because I never grew up. For me, growing up, I have 4 brothers and in family that had, the goal was you get a good job and take care of your family. And if you could
retire someday.
Exactly. But if you could get to like a supervisory position, that was amazing.
Yeah.
The idea of owning your own business, that was never talked about. That was never discussed. So I want my kids to know, you don't have to do it this way. You can be an entrepreneur if you so desire. There are people that have gotten into it and said, you know what, I don't want to do it anymore. And I don't look down on them. I'm like, that's understanding what you want to do.
Self-awareness.
Perfect. Yeah. And they've gone back to working for, because I don't want those responsibilities. Because maybe I'm in the final years before I want to retire, so I'm going to do that. So it's just having that. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have it any other way. Cannot imagine working for someone else now. I hate meetings. Faculty meetings were by far the worst thing about teaching. They were incredibly long and drab and boring, and I hate them. I just hate meetings. Period. So now I don't have any employees, but I do have a virtual assistant. We do meet for like 15-20 minutes on Monday mornings to go over things for the week, go over emails, and we're done.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
It's amazing to me how more and more people of our generation are impressing upon our kids that, look, my kids, my daughter, in the last year and a half, expressed an interest in college. So, Cam, I'm sorry we didn't save for college because it was a single income family. Mm-hmm. And your college, as it were, went into the ability of your mom staying home with you guys.
Right.
So it's one of those things that I look at now, well, we'll figure it out. But keep in mind, you're not going to college just to get away from us. You're not going into debt over it. And if we get you in for a full ride, great. That's fine. I have no problem with that. Mm-hmm. But understand at the end of the day, what you're going to get out of college is the networking or the people you're going to meet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is the biggest thing. Recently she said, well, I feel like I'm pressured to pick a major. I said, Cam, okay, I'm going to put a stop to this right now. Don't feel pressured at all. At the end of the day, pick communications, pick music. I don't care.
Right.
Because gone are the days where you had to find out what you wanted to do for the rest of your life by the time you turn 18. Mm-hmm. You remember what you wanted to do when you were 18?
I actually do.
What was it?
Well, I wanted to go into psychology. I actually did. Okay. From the time I was, and got all the way to I was a senior in college and realized after working with, in that field for that long, I'm like, this is not what I want to do.
Right. So me, I wanted to be a CPA. David, you know me.
Yeah.
Can I? You see me being a friggin' CPA?
That comment right there is better than any of the dad jokes from earlier.
This my point of it being, we have no idea who the hell we are.
No,
at 18, 19, 20, 21.
Exactly.
No idea. College will help you get there. But I mean, honestly, I told Cammie this. I said, look, I don't care if you go sell cars. Mm-hmm. I'd prefer that if you don't go to college, you find a job that you are selling something. Right. I want you to be selling. I want you to learn that skill. That is an underserved, underlearned skill in this country.
I sometimes joke that I am now in a field where I have no educational background, and that's not really true.
No.
Because I do, the education, but also, I think you make a good point there. When I was in grad school, I took a job at JCPenney selling suits.
Yeah.
It was the first time I was ever in sales. It was the first time I was ever, because I was on commission. And I think back on those couple of years there and how important it was for what I'm doing now.
Right.
God has a path for us. We don't know what it is. But that couple of years there was so vital, along with the other stuff I was doing, to getting me to where, from a career standpoint, to get me to where I am now.
Yeah.
And I never realized it. And we won't until, like you said, until we look back and, in that fleeting moment or whatever. So, but I know what you said to your daughter. That's awesome. Get into selling because it's hard. And I think I don't think disappointment's always a bad thing, because when we are disappointed, we learn from it. And I know for a long time, there was a period in my life, and I wish I remember the person who said this to me. They said, well, what do you want to do now? After I decided I didn't want to go into psychology, what do you want to do now? And I'm like, I don't know. I just know what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And they said, well, that's good. It's good that you know what you don't want to do. Now you'll take some time, but you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that was very enlightening to me. It's good to know what you don't want to do as well.
I tell my kids that your 20s are for falling on your face.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that it's okay to, dare I use the word fail? Because I say you're only a failure if you quit.
Right.
Or if you quit what you're doing, and yes, you're failed. But all you're doing is stumbling and you're having to eat some dirt and stuff like that. But over the time of you doing this, you're learning. Okay, you're learning what you do and what you don't like, what kind of people you like working for. I mean, much like you in my, not grad school, but I mean, in my late teens, early 20s, I actually sold rainbow vacuums.
Oh, okay.
And I loved it. It was fun, so I always had a bent for selling. And then I went to selling luxury patio furniture and pool tables, which, because, I'll blame it on the traffic of the store. I didn't do all that well. They ended up letting me go, but I worked for my dad after that, installing phone systems. Okay. And I figured out I don't like doing this.
Yeah.
And then I got into radio, and although I always felt like I was a good salesperson, but man, that got put to the test when I got into cars.
Yeah.
Because now you had to perform. Because otherwise you didn't make money.
Yeah, exactly.
So, David, how do people reach out and find and follow you and all that fun stuff?
Well, you can go to my website. It's crabtreebenefits.com. Reach out there. That's probably one of the better places. I mean, my number, 615-519-3372. I give that number out. That is my cell number. And that's I think one of the best advice I can give people if they ask me about what's the best sales advice I can give you, that is answer your phone. I think that is just, we're so into email and text and things like that. But particularly with what I do, if there's a claims issue, people will, I tell them, if you'll just call me, instead of us going back and forth 15 times with an email, we can probably have it done in 2 or 3 minutes and be done with it.
Yeah, but do you answer every call, even if it's an unknown number?
Just about, unless it says spam. I really do, which is kind of sometimes a bad thing.
If I know who's calling me, I'll take your call. But if it's an unknown number, I let it go to voicemail, and I'll probably get back to you later.
Well, and the reason for that is I have a client where they have contractors, and they'll call me from Illinois or Georgia or wherever. So I have to answer, and they're like, "Yeah, I work for so and so." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Let's talk for a minute." Yeah. But no, I think answering the phone is something that we've kind of gotten out of the habit of doing. But yeah, CrabtreeBenefits.com. Reach me there. Reach out to me, by email. I'll be glad to reach out and call you. But yeah,
I'll ask you this one last question: when you get a phone call, and sometimes whether it's going to be a solicitor or something like that, if you know it's a solicitor, do you take the call just for good sales karma?
Maybe that's what I don't know. Maybe that's a great. It's not this. I do take the call. First of all, it's not something about karma. Yeah. I just know how hard it is what they're doing. Yeah, and because I do get, particularly when it's end of a quarter, I've got a lot of phone calls from carriers because they're looking for people doing Medicare supplements. And I don't do Medicare supplements. I focus on the group market, and I'll let them talk to me, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, I just don't do that. No, and but hey, good luck to you. And they're always so appreciative. Like, hey, well, thank you. You have a great day. And I'm like, well, you do too. And I said, good luck. And so I guess it is a little bit of a good karma thing because I just know how tough that is to be called. Because I used to do that when I first started.
Yeah, the cold call.
Well, yeah. And when I first started, when I told you about going to be an account manager, one of the first people I had to start working with were other agents. Yeah. So I was calling agencies because it was an old we had a general agency, so we could literally do business for you and not affect your commissions. We'd get an override on whatever business we wrote. Yeah. And that was one of the most difficult things and harrowing because you would get people literally, I get them connected to a carrier. And I remember this vividly, getting this one group. I was very excited about this agency. And literally right in front of my face, they said, can we deal with you directly? We don't want to deal with him, referring to me. Right. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? I made the connection for you. So,
all right. Well, to each their own, right?
Yeah. Sometimes benefit people are the worst. So I don't know.
It's sometimes I need to be better about that. If I sense any indication that I'm being sold, I don't have the time for this.
Yeah.
Door to door, I need to be a little bit more patient with those people because, hey, you made a stupid decision getting into door-to-door sales, but, sometimes you can invite them to B&I for crying out loud,
Hey, that's the Ryan Reed method right there.
I actually, that is true. The other day I went into we're getting into jump zones and trampoline parks with the lighting here lately. And I'm like, we just need a partner here in our backyard that we can do R&D with and, get some video content. So my approach was I just walked into some of these places and said, listen, who's the manager? They point me to who the manager was. Usually it was some young kid. I said, look, we're a lighting company. We're located right here in Thompson Station. We do multicolor lighting. We actually were looking to get into this vertical. We're looking for a local partner here, and just kind of pitched it that way. And the second place I went into, I said, you don't look like somebody who would take cold calls like this. He's like, I wouldn't. He says, nice job. I said, but honestly, this is our true motivation. We just want a partner. We'll do the whole. We'll sell you for what the lights are what our cost is. Yeah. And in all seriousness, but I'm thinking to myself, man, that was a good tactic. It really immediately warmed up the cold call.
It's non-threatening.
It's non-threatening.
Yeah.
How did you find ways to warm up the cold call as you would make them?
Oh,
what was your favorite method?
Oh, I don't know if I had a particular method. Usually my method is always just trying to relate to them in some way.
Yeah.
Because I had, you look around the office and you see something. I mean, anything, I love baseball, anything baseball related, I could, start talking about baseball.
Yeah.
But just trying to relate to them, to get them, you talk about a psychological thing. Whenever that person is kind of sitting back and they're kind of looking at you kind of like this and you're talking, you finally made a connection when they're like, oh, really? And they start to lean forward.
Yeah.
They lean into you a little bit.
The arms get uncrossed.
Exactly. The arms
wall comes down.
Exactly. And it's now you're making some progress. So yeah, cold calling is I think everyone should do some cold calling in their life because it's very humbling.
But isn't it easier the older we get though? Do you think I think it is? Because I think, as we get more experience and stuff under our belts and in our rear view, we can pull from that experience. For me, if I'm making a true cold call, depending on what I'm calling about, sometimes I'll even say, hey, listen, this is a cold call. I don't like making them. You don't like getting them. Is that fair? Just get it out of the way and say, with that being said, how are you? When was the last time somebody actually asked you how you are? It's Monday morning. You're getting back into the swing of things. I'm not even going to tell you what I'm trying to do here until I find out, what's up, man? How are you?
Yeah.
And sometimes that would get the conversation going.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think, just like I said, just plus your mentalities, because we feed on the vibes of other people.
Yeah.
And I remember those early years thinking, before I walked in, trying to tell myself, okay, relax, calm down. Because I needed the sale.
Yeah.
I needed the sale.
That desperation is reeking.
Oh, desperation stinks. Yeah. It really does. And you will not get thrown out. You'll get thrown out faster with desperation than you will with some kind of slick sales move.
Right.
I mean, sales move at least will work sometimes, but desperation, you're gone. I mean, quickly.
Yeah.
So, but when you can go in there and like you said, and just kind of be casual and
set it up how it is, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not freaking rocket
now, with
surgery.
that said, I'm not. I haven't made a cold call in I don't know how long, because once I started establishing a network, I get people calling me either from obviously from BNI, but also from people that I know throughout. I get calls out of the blue, people I hadn't talked to in 6 months, 2 years.
I think for anybody who's in their early 20s that's getting into the sales game, they have to understand that, look, whether it's cars, whether it's solar, insurance, mortgages, real estate, you're looking at a 5-year grind.
Oh, yeah.
You're looking at a 5-year grind. I have a pal of mine that works at the other Mercedes dealership here. He's been with that dealership for 18 years. He's got constant opportunity coming to him.
Right.
Because he's just been there that long.
Right.
And he's conducted business with integrity. He's built the relationships. Mm-hmm. There are guys there who are, dare I say, hard closers, close them the first visit, that kind of thing. But they continue having to take ups because eventually people just don't. I bought it from this guy. It's a decent dealership, but I wouldn't go to him again. Go to this guy instead.
Yeah.
That happens. And it's amazing to me when I find out these sales trainers are teaching that kind of methodology to kids who are in the 20s, because the kid, they want to be making money. They want to be like the sales trainer. They want to be like these guys who are making a ton of money. They don't understand it took them 10, 15, 20 years to get there.
Yeah.
When you tell a 20-year-old that in 5 years, they might just be getting the rubber to meet the road and getting traction, 5 years is a lifetime to them. You remember at 20?
Oh, gosh, yeah. Right? I mean, I was never going to be 40. What do you mean?
That's right.
But you're exactly right. I mean, and they don't tell you that in the book or in their presentation, that it took me 10 years to get here or whatever. So,
but it seemed like a blink of an eye, though, looking at it now, right?
Oh, yeah, it does. Whew. But and there's probably a few people out there that have been really successful and they've been able to blow it out early on. And that's great. A lot of times, what I found was, talking about cold calls, is timing.
Yeah.
I mean, if that person was in a good mood, that helped you. Or if you just walked in at just the right time, where maybe in the benefits area, their broker had really made them angry.
Yeah.
And I mean, they were just looking to hurt that person. And you're like, here I am.
Yep.
I'm not very good right
me.
now. I've only been in for 2 years, but I'm basically better. I'm not that guy. So, yeah.
I left my first bad review in a long time recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was just for a product that was everything went sideways on ordering this thing. And getting it back to them, the shipping back, I mean, it's like, I don't like being that guy that has to, but you guys, man, you really earned this 1 star. I have to let the world know. I'm sorry. Yeah. I hate being that guy, but yeah, you pissed me off to the point where I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Well, but now it's up to them to look at that and either say, he's just a jerk, or, you know what? We failed on this one.
Yeah.
We didn't do a very good job. So what can we do to get better?
Right.
It's like a sports thing. Those things happen. You have bad games. You have bad sales. You have bad time. Just you don't handle it properly. How can we make it better? So it's on them now to make it better.
And the thing about it is that it's very well written. My bad review, which makes a huge difference.
That's even better. Yeah, it's even better.
Usually the bad reviews that are horribly written, you just don't take seriously as a consumer.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there we go. We're going to wrap things up because we've been going for quite some time now, and we could keep going because I told you you'd be a great conversation. You had your doubts.
Well, thank you. It's really been enjoyable. I have to admit I was a little anxious about it, but
it's comfy.
It is comfy. You get to kind of rolling, and
it's almost like you need to do your own or something. It's nuts. Talk about history.
It's good therapy. So.
It really is. Well, there you go, guys. Check us out. Check out David Crabtree, CrabtreeBenefits.com. We'll put all that stuff in the description. So if you want to reach out to him for your business needs that you need some group benefits, David is the man. I mean, he'll be there for you at the drop of a hat, answer all your questions. If your employees have questions, he's there for them as well. We use him here at J Squared for our group benefits, and we've had a wonderful experience so far. And of course, what'syourproblempodcast.com. Again, I'll put it out there for all those who listen. If you're able to share it out and spread the word, looking to get to that magic 10,000 average downloads per episode over an annualized basis. So throughout the year, if these episodes can hit that number, I'm doing something right. What'syourproblempodcast.com. Mr. David Crabtree, thanks again, my friend.
Jim, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate it.